Hey, brother, we're boots on the ground here. We're moving on to Capitol now. I'll give you a boots on the ground update here in a few.
Multiple capital entries! Multiple capital entries!
January 6th, 1 year later after the insurrection and the siege on the Capitol in Washington, D.C., those sounds were reminiscent or really memory of what we all witnessed 1 year ago today. Happy New Year out there, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Shakeback Sports Show, Big Game Christian Sports Network. Willie Epteen Jr. holding it down. I got my sissy in the background. She's holding it down. I'll bring her here in just a second to the dopest engineer on the planet, Big Day. What's happening? Sports fans all over the planet. We got a lot to get into. We're going to talk about what happened last year on this day, probably the entire first segment. Then we're going to get into some Antonio Brown, as well as week 17 and upcoming week 18 for the NFL. Also, Kyrie is back. Before we move any further, though, in this first segment, it is being brought to you by the Short Game Place. If you're like 64 million people across the U.S. who want to play golf, but the courses are closed when you're available, then let me tell you about the first of its kind coming soon to the North DFW indoor 18-hole real patent pending golf course. And yes, I said real. Introducing the Short Game Place. The Short Game Place plays like the real thing with hazards like water, trees, and sand bunkers. You'll be able to learn, play, and improve your golf skills anytime, day or night. Visit theshortgameplace.com for more info. Again, I don't even golf, but I'm about to learn how. I know you want to go. Let's go. We're going to visit theshortgameplace.com. All right, let me go ahead and bring my sissy in. She, of course, is the first lady of sports in Northeast Ohio, the lead host of Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 in the Cuyahoga City of Cleveland. And I am talking about, of course, Rachel Hill. Rachel, what's happening?
Hi, Lily. How are you?
I'm good. More importantly, how are you doing?
I've had better days.
Well, I know you are a little under the weather. And if you want to disclose the situation, you can do that. Otherwise, we will move on into the show. I know you have something coming up at the bottom of the hour. So anytime that you can present or that you can provide, of course, we always appreciate it.
Oh, well, I got COVID. So I think it's very important that people understand that COVID is real and it's something very nasty. So, I think it's in everybody's best interest to get vaccinated, get boosted, because I am vaccinated. I acquired COVID just a week before I was supposed to get boosted. And I'm no medical expert, but I think having my vaccination so long ago, I'm not exactly sure what effect that's had, but I'm not in the hospital or anything like that. But COVID is pretty nasty and it's very real. And I urge your audience and all the listeners out there to get vaccinated. It's the life or death situation. So,
and there you have it. And Rachel, like you said, you are vaccinated. You were due to get boosted. That's just more testimony because you're not in the hospital. You're actually on the show doing this with me. And I appreciate that. And people out there that are watching as we are on Facebook Live, as well as on Twitter and YouTube through the Facebook page for the Shakeback Media Group, as well as YouTube and Twitter, you can see she's not in the hospital. She did get the shots. And the reason why she's not in the hospital is because she got the shots. So that, again, this is proof that the vaccinations don't prevent you from catching it. It just eases the issues whenever you do catch it, if you should catch it. So thank you, Rachel, for that in itself right there. Okay, Rachel, did you hear the opening sound of the show? 1 year. 1 year. We're 1 year removed as of tape time. Your thoughts as to where we are 1 year later from what took place in DC, moments or really days before, 2 weeks before the inauguration and the supposed peaceful transfer of power?
First of all, you can't believe something like that happened in the United States of America. You had citizens try to overthrow the government and circumvent the results of an election. It was a day that will live on forever. Super duper shameful. Where we are a year later, that's an excellent question. You still have a political party that is um, still trying to not move America forward. You still have a former president who's claiming that he won the election when all evidence points to he did not win the election. This world has moved on, but you have people that are so narcissistic they can't move on. I've never seen such a death grip and cult of personality in this country. You just never think you see something like this in your lifetime. And we're seeing a lot of things in our lifetime we never thought we would see. Where we're at a year now, you're still seeing people do whatever they can to protect him. He's a kingmaker, and his stamp of approval still, even though he's not president, helps propel people in their party. And a lot of people think that by acting like him, they will become the president of the United States. And I implore everyone to vote so that doesn't happen. To sum it up, sorry if I was rambling.
No, you're good. You're good. As I was having some hardware issues while you were speaking, I had to go into my athleticism in my old reflex mode. Um, what I want to say about where we are a year later is it is still very, very difficult to imagine, like you said, Rachel, that this actually happened in the United States of America, the richest, most powerful democracy on the globe, and other countries or nations that look to the United States in terms of what an example of a democracy is are continually shaking their heads collectively. You know, what's the initial SMH8 or whatever it is. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing around the world, and it's just so fitting because on Wednesday night here in Dallas, Dirk Nowitzki's jersey was retired, and if I'm not mistaken, they actually put a statue. Mark Cuban had a statue built for him outside the American Airlines Arena or American Airlines Center. And you might be asking, well, Willie, why are you mentioning Dirk Nowitzki in this? And the reason why I'm doing that is because of this. A couple years ago, I want to say maybe in 2019, it may have been 19 season. I was actually at Dallas Mavericks Media Day and got a chance to talk to Coach Carlisle at the time when he was with the Mavs. Some of the other players, such as Kristaps Porzingis wasn't there yet, but Luka was. But I asked Dirk a question, and I wish I had the sounder, and I tried to find it, but I don't have it for this show. But what I asked him was, at that time, I said, Dirk, you are a internationally known, entity and icon. You've just got back from Africa and other countries around the world. What are they saying about the United States in different places? Rachel, you know what his answer was? His answer to me was, you don't want to know what they're saying. I was like, well, why not, Dirk? He said, I'm not the one to say what they're saying around the world. If you have any European friends, I would ask you to ask them what is being said about the United States in other parts of the world. And you fast forward to now, 1 year removed from the most heinous domestic assault on the country, and people are still in denial that it happened, or still in denial that the election wasn't fair or free, or still in protection mode for Donald Trump and the people that help incite this whole thing. Now, this isn't to me, Rachel, this is not, and I'm not going to turn this into a political conversation, but to me, this is not about right or left or Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal or black or white or black or brown or white, or it's not about that. This is simply about what's right or wrong, simply about what is right or wrong. And even in terms of the Constitution and what it says about the election process in the United States of America, this was a direct assault on everything that this country is supposed to stand for. However, if you look at it at the surface and you really break it down to its core, what was attempted on January the 6th of 2021 with them trying to overturn the election, with them trying to siege the Capitol, isn't that how the United States kind of was birthed? Rachel? You're on mute.
Sorry, it absolutely was. Ironically.
So in an effort to not turn this into critical race theory, which is stupid in itself, because anything that ends in theory is just that. We're talking about actual facts that are written in history books. Everybody that's in the United States and has been a student in whatever grade, you've seen this and taken tests on it or whatnot. What happened was really just a repeat of what happened. And I'm gonna say this, Rachel, because I think it's important, and I really think that some of us are missing it. In order for us to be able to become what we want to become, we must unbecome what we currently are. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So if we are a country that is truly the home of the brave and the land of the free, then we have to unbecome everything that made us what we currently are. If we are truly a land of life, love, life, liberty, and equal rights for all, then we have to unbecome what we were to become what we want to be. That means, in my opinion, there need to be some revisions in that Constitution, particularly the one that says African Americans, to a degree, or I'm paraphrasing, African Americans are what, 5/8 of a person?
3/5.
3/5 of a person. 3/5. Yeah. So let me educate y'all out there for just a second. I live in Texas. Rachel is in Ohio. Rachel's in the north. I'm in the south. Texas was the last state to let everybody know that the slaves were freed. That's where Juneteenth came from. But let me give you another little history lesson, Rachel. I don't know if you know about this. You know, there's a couple states out here that have panhandles. Oklahoma's one, Texas is one, and Florida is one. Those are the three that come to my mind. There may be others. There may be a couple others. I don't know. But specifically for this conversation, Texas, Oklahoma. You know where the Texas line is, where it meets Oklahoma? You see that little bitty strip of land on the map for Oklahoma? Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why that exists and is in Oklahoma is because that is, I think it's the 36th or 33rd or something longitude, where that was the line that was drawn to where above that line, having slaves were not legal. Anything south of that line, slaves were equal, or to have slaves were legal. That part of Oklahoma that is the panhandle, that actually belonged to Texas. But Texas did not want to honor or recognize the fact that anything north of that 36 longitude or whatever it is, slavery was outlawed. So they gave that land to Oklahoma. What say you, Rachel? Come on, give me something.
It just blows your mind. It blows your mind how steadfast people are to certain institutions, how steadfast they were to the institution of slavery, and they willing to give up land to get it. You know, it's just, I mean, there's so many other, you know, crazy historical facts out here relating to slavery and what people were willing to do or not willing to do in order to hold, you know, to maintain slavery. So not surprising, little history lesson. I think I've heard that before, but the way you put it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and look, I like Texas. I like living here. I really do. There's some places I won't go in Texas. I mean, there's some places in Dallas I won't go, for real. But I actually like it here, except for the weather in the summer times, especially. But you know, that in itself ought to, and I get into it with people on social media all the time as we're running up against the break. I run into it with people all the time on social media about these issues, and I asked them to go and research why is the Texas Panhandle the way that it is and the Oklahoma Panhandle the way that it is. And then I never, of course, get any sort of response from them. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for the first segment. Come on back on the other side of the break. We are going to get into some NFL because Antonio Brown is no longer a Buccaneer, and it's going to get messy down there in Tampa. For the dopest engineer in the game, Big Day, Rachel Hill, Willie Epstein Jr., Shake Back Sports Show. Y'all come on back and holler at us. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Stop your camera. Stop your camera for me. All right. You can still hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My microphone fell down, so I got to put it back up. I knew that was going to happen. I need some more equipment, man. I need some more equipment.
Wearing it out, huh?
I guess so. I mean, I got another mic and another mic stand. It just doesn't sound as good as this mic. The other one is for like when I'm out in the field doing interviews on the scene. So it's not a condenser mic like this one is. Okay.
All so right. I gotta go after this segment. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's really only 5. You only got 5 minutes to 6:30. So if you want to go ahead and bounce now, I dig it.
I told him I was gonna be a few minutes late. How long is this segment?
18 minutes. So yeah, just go ahead and bounce. It's all good. It's all good.
No, I got a few minutes. I told him I was gonna be late.
Okay, hold on a second. Oh Jesus, something else done happened. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. All right. Let's see. What? Oh shoot. All right, hold on. That's why I say I got to edit all this stuff, so it's gonna take a minute. I'll let us. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, restart your camera. What's up, everybody? We welcome you back to the Shakeback Sports Show, second segment, Big Game Christian Sports Network. Rachel Hill, what's up? You're on mute. Take yourself off mute.
Wow.
There she is. All right, man. Sports fans all over the rock. First segment, we talked about 1 year later. Rachel, any final thoughts on 1 year later of the January 6th insurrection? I almost said resurrection, but insurrection.
It was just, excuse me, I'm sorry. It was just a disgusting moment in time. And I just hope that it never repeats itself.
Exactly. All right, before we move any further, this second segment is being brought to you by Amber Knight. Like a good neighbor, Amber Knight is there of State Farm Insurance. She is there to provide simple, personalized, and caring services with the insurance and financial services needs or services for the people of Ardmore, Oklahoma not only need, but they deserve. Contact her today, 580-223-0391. When you want the real deal, call Amber Knight today. Like a good neighbor, Amber Knight is there. All right, so let's get into some football because we are getting down, or we are actually down to, well, the season's going to be over by the time that this last episode or this final segment airs on Sunday. However, there was an incident that took place in the Meadowlands against or with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and one Antonio Brown and the New York Jets. Now, aside from the game and the Jets being up on the Bucs most of the game, Tom Brady did lead a comeback. He also helped me win a fantasy league championship. I appreciate that, brother. But the news and the headlines were when Antonio Brown took off his gloves, his helmet, his shoulder pads, and his T-shirt and threw it all into the stands except for the shoulder pads and the jersey, jogged off the field with the peace sign and disappeared into the tunnel. Now, as of Thursday, he was released from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rachel, we're not going to bash Antonio Brown whatsoever because we're not about that right now. Now, we can bash the way that he handled it, but we're not going to bash him as an individual. What were your thoughts when you saw what happened?
I just was wondering what was going on. You know, there's always more than one side to every story, and you just want more context of what happened to prompt something like that. I just, look at it like what's going on with AB. So there's been things that have came out afterwards about him being injured and stuff like that. But I don't think any football player ever wants to leave the game for, any reason. So there had to be reason if he left and something excuse me, I'm sorry, I had the hiccups. Something had to be taking place for him to leave the field in that manner.
This is what we do know. We do know that Antonio Brown was suspended 3 games for an illegitimate vaccination card. We do know that he did sustain an ankle injury some weeks ago. But what we don't know is the severity of the injury and how much it played a part in what actually happened on this past Sunday. Now, I can tell you firsthand that the injury was a lot more severe than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were letting on. I can guarantee you that information. That injury that he had, he actually was in the process or maybe had already gotten a second opinion at that point. I'm telling you what I know. Okay. So in terms of Antonio Brown, the man, the father, not the football player, not AB, not Mr. Big Checks, none of that. In terms of Antonio Brown, the man, obviously there's something there. I can tell you that there is something there. I'm not the one to tell the story. That will be coming later on in full detail at some point, I'm sure. However, the young man, from by all accounts, he's very likable. He's very approachable even. It's just, and his teammates love him. They say he's the hardest working player that they've ever been on the team with. So there's one variable that's missing that we don't know, and that may be the one thing that is keeping all of these things that take place with AB to continue to take place. Now, again, I thought the way that he handled it was deplorable and reprehensible. Should never have done it that way. However, it is what it is. All right, so let's move on. We got some I got a question for you, Rachel, because there's some things that are going on in the NFL from week 17 that kind of made me scratching my head a little bit. Now, I know you got to get out of here. You got a meeting to go to here in a few minutes. So as long as you can stay on, cool. But let me ask you, what team was the biggest loser from week 17 that you saw? It wasn't the Cleveland Browns because they were already out of the playoffs. So you can't say them.
You gotta give me some help because I was in the bed with COVID, not watching football.
Okay, let me break it down to you like this, because the Dallas Cowboys were at home against the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cardinals really gave it to them all game long. I mean, really gave it to them all game long, and the Cowboys had won 4 straight. But I don't think any of those games, none of those games were a team that's either in the playoff hunt or bound for the playoffs. So now the stigma that's surrounding the Dallas Cowboys franchise and the area is they can't beat the good teams. So they had a big opportunity against Arizona and they lost 25-22. Now, Kyler Murray is from right here in Allen, Texas. He came into that game with a record of 7-0, high school and college. He walked out of that place with his 8th victory in 8 games. He has not lost a game there. So for the Dallas Cowboys and a team that supposedly has all this talent, how big of a loss do you think this was in terms of their psyche?
I don't know. I don't think it was as big of a loss. I mean, it's a game that matters but doesn't really matter. But they got some games that are coming up that will matter very soon. I very rarely root for the Dallas Cowboys, but I kind of was rooting for them the other day. I always root for the losing team or the underdog. But yeah, to lose that game in front of your fans against a good team, I mean, the Cardinals are a good team. So what you gonna do? It was a close game, so it wasn't like they got blown out or anything like that. So, anytime you lose a football game, it's a bad thing. But how, when you notch it amongst the losses, I mean, yeah, letting Kyler get in there and win his 8th game, that is a lot. That's saying a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And what will y'all ever be able to stop him? But, that just goes to how good Kyler Murray is playing right now and what Cliff Kingsbury and that franchise is doing, as a testament.
Well, the game itself, the Cowboys, this is what I actually said this about the Cowboys about 3 weeks ago, but nobody listens to the little brown boy that's on the outskirts of Dallas with that funny looking haircut. They don't listen to that little brown boy out there. But what I said was this: the Dallas Cowboys, unless they force turnovers, they're in trouble. And number 2, outside of Trevon Diggs, that secondary is average at best. And even further, a 2A. You can get Trevon Diggs on double moves because he's a very aggressive cornerback. I mean, and his ball skills are terrific. And he is an interception machine. But in that game against an aging AJ Green, rather. I got my colors mixed up. AJ Green hit on one of those double moves and left Trevon Diggs in the dust. And the ball from Kyler Murray was actually overthrown, or else it would have been a touchdown. So if the Cowboys are not forcing turnovers, they're in trouble. And of course, we know when you get into the playoffs, what happens? You're playing. Wait a minute. When you get into the playoffs,
playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
The Cowboys might be saying that. We hope we can win a game in the playoffs because you're not going to get those types of turnovers against the upper echelon teams in the manner of which you got them in the postseason. Your turn. She's just gonna nod her head. Okay. So
I agree though.
yeah. And then, you know, I like giving it to Cowboys fans because that's just what I do. There's nothing they can outside of winning the Super Bowl this year. There's nothing a Cowboy fan can say to me about anything this year because my Raiders came into Jerry World, aka the Blast Furnace, aka the Chicken Fried Nation, aka Jerry World, and handed it to him. I mean, you can say whatever you want to say about the 28 penalties. They both had 14 penalties, but Cowboy fans cannot say anything to me about the Cowboys this year. They better not. So aside from that, I think that for them, I mean, they got a game against the Eagles, last game of the year. The Eagles have really just sewn up this either the 7th or 6th seed. The Cowboys still could move up a little bit. It's not going to really matter because they can't get any higher than 3rd, I don't think. So yeah. And then another team too, Rachel, that I think did not do themselves a favor was the Indianapolis Colts. And they played against who? My Raiders. And Jonathan Taylor went off like he did. But with all of the adversity that the Raiders have had throughout the season, and even in that game, for Derek Carr to throw an interception the way that he did, and then there was another missed pass to one of the wide, I can't remember which one it was, for everything that went wrong in that game. Oh yeah, and then T.Y. Hilton with this Hail Mary tip touchdown that he caught when the ball bounced off of 2 Raider defenders and he's in the end zone. He just sticks his hands out and catches it. Through all of that adversity, the Raiders came out with the victory and is 1 win away from being in the playoffs. The Indianapolis Colts, had they won that game, they would be in. And the Raiders would likelihood be out, especially if there's a loss to the Chargers on Sunday Night Football. But the Chargers and the Raiders go at it on Sunday. And then, of course, the Jaguars will be playing home to the Indianapolis Colts. And if they lose that game to the Jags, oh, my gosh. So let me ask you this, Rachel. Well, you said you didn't watch any football. So let me throw this at you because I actually heard this on Thursday that Baker Mayfield may be seeking a trade.
Yeah, according to Baker, because he cussed out the reporter on Twitter who reported that he said, "Don't be talking about me to put food on your table. You don't know what's going on. You starting stuff." So those are some of the rumors that we are hearing. How do we really know what's true? I guess by Baker's vehement response that it might not be true, but who knows? Things in the organization are pretty bad, and it's just crazy how they go from first to worst, not first, but what I'm saying, how the fall was so swift, from last season. So it's a lot going on out there in Berea, but I don't know. Baker might be seeking a trade. He might not be seeking a trade. Who knows?
Well,
I feel sorry for him.
For Baker?
I do.
Why?
Because he's not good.
You feel sorry for him because he's not good. Well, it's not his fault that Andrew Barry? No, Andrew Barry didn't take him at number 1. Who took him at number 1?
John Dorsey.
It's not Baker's fault that John Dorsey took him number 1 overall.
That's true.
Because I remember that draft like it was yesterday. Everybody was saying, no, Baker's not going number 1. Baker's not going number 1. And then all of a sudden, this just in. The Browns are on the clock. They've decided to take Baker Mayfield, quarterback from Oklahoma or University of Oklahoma. I'm like, what? So, look, whose fault is it in Cleveland? Whose head should roll in Cleveland for the precipitous fall off from last year to this year in the organization?
I think it's Kevin Stefanski and Baker shares the part, and front office management, but I think Kevin Stefanski shares a huge part of it. Because remember, I don't know if you remember me talking about sophomore slump.
Mm-hmm.
But you saw it with Kevin Stefanski and how bad he fell off and how bad his play calling was and how he would get out coached. Yes, it's only his second year, but he would get out coached in games. And at the end of the day, this team wasn't able to perform. And did he put them in situations to win? Also, you look at Baker, 4 opportunities to come from behind and unable to do it, interceptions, and he's like the worst quarterback in like the fourth quarter in all of the NFL. So you have multiple, reasons why things went so bad. I don't really look at the Odell thing as one. That you could look at the Odell thing, how Baker wouldn't throw the ball to Odell, but Odell is doing just fine out there, with the Rams. So, but there's a video that was made showing all the times he was open. Matthew Stafford hasn't had an issue finding Odell Beckham open, things like that. What was the issue, Baker? Why wouldn't you throw him the ball? So, I mean, it's just things like that you look back on, key instances in the season where things, went bad, but also talked about how, losing and not being able to hold on to leads was going to hurt them, losing that Kansas City game and that Chargers game where you had leads like that was going to come back to bite them. And it did in the very end. But also, not being able to pull it out when you have the ball in your hands. I mean, they almost beat Green Bay in Green Bay.
Uh-huh.
But Baker threw an interception, and that's you haven't won. You have like one come from behind victory, and that was like against Cincinnati last season. But other than that, when the ball is in your hands, you can't bring the team back from behind. So it's a tale as old as time, but there's a multitude of different reasons. But I do feel bad for Baker because I think we want him to be successful. We want to not go through, another 30 quarterbacks, but this just isn't. It just isn't happening. And here we go, possibly we're done with him. Do I believe he can improve? I don't know.
I think he's reached his peak. And one other thing I want to say about Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield and Matthew Stafford, the the triumvirate, if you will, or the menage. Baker Mayfield could not find Odell Beckham Jr. after 2.5 years of being in the same offense.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Stafford and Odell Beckham Jr. have seemingly developed a tremendous chemistry after only 3 or 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidence? I don't know. All right, Rachel, that's going to wind it up for the second segment. I know you got to get out of here. I appreciate you hopping on with your boy. You stay safe, and we'll holler at you real soon. Y'all come on back on the other side of the break. We're going to get into some NBA and college football. Willie Epstein Jr., Shake Back Sports Show, Rachel Hill, dopest engineer in the game, Big Day. Y'all come back and holler at us.